Hi, my name is Kaely Hall, and I'm presenting the paper Designing for Strengths, Opportunities to Support Neurodiversity in the Workplace. Neurodiversity, or neurodivergent, refers to cognitive processes experienced by individuals with neurological differences such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and intellectual disability. When considering current technologies that are built for neurodivergent users, two main problems occur. The first problem is that the technologies are approached using a deficit-based design perspective, which assumes deficiencies in an individual based on their diagnosis only and seeks to correct that deficiency. Unfortunately, the behavioral corrections are often based on neurotypical norms that some neurodivergent individuals are uncomfortable with. Further, the deficit-based approach can introduce or reinforce feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt because the user's focus and attention is brought to what they're not good at. The second problem frequently observed in technologies for neurodivergent users is that end users are not able or allowed to participate in the design process, which results in technologies that are not built with the user perspective in mind. This further perpetuates stereotyped assumptions of the user's wants and needs. A key component of successfully supporting diversity of ability and cognition is to support the individual's agency to enact change in their own lives through their own abilities, preferences, and understanding. The deficit-based approach has negative impacts on accepting diversity because these technologies categorize neurodivergence as a list of disabilities that need to be compensated for, as opposed to cognitive differences and preferences that should be embraced. Further, it can actually reduce the agency of the user by assuming their abilities and goals. Therefore, our goal is to investigate and design a technology that supports neurodivergence by fostering an individual's agency. Positive psychology and previous HCI work have suggested that the use of one's strengths can result in heightened positive attitudes, belief in one's abilities, and self-efficacy amongst individuals with autism. Our approach seeks to design a technology that supports neurodivergent users in addressing challenges they face using their strengths. We use the VIA Institute of Character Strength classifications for our study. The classifications VIA uses serve as a conceptual framework and a common language when discussing strengths, which proved very helpful with our study participants. For our purposes, we categorize strengths themes observed during our study into this conceptual framework by associating them with the most relevant VIA strength. Here you can see the 24 character strengths in the framework, and it includes relationships, perseverance, teamwork, creativity, kindness, and love of learning. To make sure we truly understood the user's perspective, we conducted an in-depth co-design study with 10 sessions, 1.5 hours each in length. We had 13 participants who all had a common diagnosis of intellectual and developmental disability and have all experienced one job. From previous HCI research that sought to understand an individual's capacities through their strategies of action, we designed 4 co-design activities that sought to understand participants' strengths through their strategies of action. We started with a Tree of Life collage activity to have the participants reflect on their personal and professional values, strengths, and dreams. The artifact served as a reference point for participants to reflect on throughout the study and resulted in a list of personalized strengths and values. The virtual job coach activity resulted in a list of types of questions and support participants would ask for in the workplace if a job coach were available. We used ChatGPT to simulate a human-like conversation experience and had participants interact with it and chat about their jobs. You can find specifics of this interface in our paper. A crucial part of this co-design method is being able to effectively translate strengths and values into design requirements that will help our participants achieve their goals through technology. Using the strengths from the Tree of Life and the work challenges from the virtual job coach activities, we guided the participants to complete user stories. Using the format seen here, participants could plug and play their own data and could have a story they could use for ideation and design. Here's an example of a user story from P6 who had asked the job coach about getting along with his new coworkers. He had strengths in humor and self-regulation, and this resulted in the user story. As P6, who has strengths in self-regulation and humor, I want to know what to do when my coworkers and I are not getting along. The user stories created a focal point for participants to share their previous experiences and strategies of actions to address problems. Using the recordings of these group discussions and shared narratives, researchers created a list of strategies that people have used and associated them with the strengths from the VIA framework. For prototyping, participants were given collage materials and personal packets, including strengths and values from the Tree of Life, the questions they asked the job coach, their user stories, and strength-based strategies they reported using in the past to address challenging experiences. Using these packets for inspiration, participants were able to create their own prototypes to support them at work. We have three main findings from our study. We found that our participants used their strengths to create personalized technology, to support their agency, and for emotional and social support. The first finding from our study is that participants who reported similar strengths used different strategies to operationalize them in their prototypes. Let's look at some examples of a strength-based strategy that are personalized to the participant. This participant reported having strengths and being able to self-regulate when faced with a challenging situation, such as when he's asked to do too many things at work and feels anxiety. This self-regulation strength allows him to manage feelings of overwhelm and address workplace challenges calmly. A strategy he has used before when feeling overwhelmed is removing himself from the stressful situation so he can reduce sensory input. In this prototype, he designed a wayfinding feature that will lead him into the break room for this purpose. The same participant, who also reported he had strengths in humor, you can see in this prototype he chose to design a feature that helps him regain calm in overwhelming situations by using a funny story to relax his brain. Another user who designed her prototype to self-regulate also had strengths in relationships and connection with others, and she designed a stressed out tile that allowed her to connect with a loved one through a video calling feature to help her calm down. Compared to the participant who made the wayfinding feature, this added strength of relationships has changed the strategy that the participant used in her prototype. This demonstrates that incorporating a diverse range of perspectives from the neurodivergent community can add rich design context and create new avenues to support a diverse range of characteristics, even if the goal is the same. Our second finding was that participants wanted their strengths to support their independency and agency in the workplace. We found that our participants were highly motivated to approach and address workplace challenges by themselves without someone breathing down their neck, as one participant put it. Many participants felt that they wanted the opportunity to attempt workplace tasks and to resolve workplace challenges on their own before asking for help. They felt that this helped make them good and reliable employees. In fact, being a hard worker was the most reported value by our participants in the workplace context, and this finding was reinforced by 12 of the 13 prototypes being designed to support using their unique strengths to execute workplace tasks independently and to their own understanding and ability. Our participants reported strengths that support them to be hard workers are good listening skills, being reliable, perseverance, teamwork, and leadership. When discussing strategies that support using these strengths, participants discussed having the agency to try a new task and address a challenge by themselves first. This participant reported strength in being able to persevere and figure out a problem. His strategy for persevering is to be supported with information like a step-by-step list so that he can complete the work task himself and to his own timing. This participant, who had strengths in reliability, used a similar step-by-step instructional feature and also included learning resources. At the top, you can see the note on the prototype that tells the user to think of what you learned. This indicates that this participant wanted to learn and internalize new skills in order to apply them in the workplace in the future, supporting his reliability as an employee. Here's a similar example where the participant works in computer science and needs support figuring out a way to code a video program. She designed a feature that allows her to watch a quick, short example of a video game program, and then in the second slide, she does it herself. Our last findings are related to strengths to support social and emotional challenges at work. A common workplace scenario that our participants designed their prototypes to help support them in was challenging customer or coworker interactions. Participants who had these experiences designed their prototypes to support them in understanding and addressing the problem on their own. Participants who had strength in empathy, listening, and kindness designed their technology to offer them a list of questions to ask the person in conflict to understand their perspective of the problem. Other participants approached their prototype for challenging social interactions differently. For example, participants who had strengths in teamwork wanted to work together with the other person to come to a solution. These prototypes were similar, but the strategy approach was different, focusing more on collaboration specifically to come to a solution. One participant designed her prototype to remind her that if there can be no good resolution with a coworker, she can remain professional and be encouraged that there are other friends she can make. This encouragement is supporting the participant's strength and hope, which is characterized by optimism about the future, belief in one's actions, and feeling confident that things will turn out well. We saw hope supported by encouragement in other prototypes as well. P5 and P1 designed prototypes to encourage them using positive language and reminders to use their strengths. Here is P1's prototype. She included a giving me praise feature in order to encourage her to keep her spirits up if she feels discouraged. So how do these findings advance technology's application and usability in supporting neurodivergent users? We suggest that designing for agency requires providing strategies that can help lead the user to address problems through their own strengths instead of providing direct solutions. We find that this is particularly true in complex social interactions or workplace situations that require complex problem solving, which are common workplace experiences for our participants. It is important to understand what unique strengths users have and personalize the strategies that the technology offers based on those strengths. Another way to support the independence of neurodivergent employees is to provide options for addressing problems and allowing the user to choose which, if any, are best for them to employ in the given scenario. This allows the user to choose how to move forward in the given situation, exercising their agency to make the final decision. Again, personalizing the strategies offered according to the user's strengths is important here. For the workplace context, we found that reassuring and positive language can help increase feelings of agency by reminding the individual that they have the strengths and skills to address workplace challenges. Therefore, our findings suggest that the concept of positive language used for encouragement would benefit a strength-supported coach technology by keeping the employee's mental perspective positively framed. In summary, we conducted a strength-based co-design study that translated our participants' values and strategies of action into strengths that could be used as design requirements for workplace supportive technologies. We contribute a new perspective on designing technologies for neurodivergence by exploring personalization through a strength-based lens. I hope this research contributes to your own design toolbox, and thank you for joining me for this presentation.